Hey, thanks for stopping by Minnesota Black Robe Regiment. Whether you're watching on Rumble or on the YouTubes, whatever it is, make sure you're following, liking, commenting, and sharing. We're very excited today. We have Dennis Smith on after much finagling over the last few weeks. I pinned him down a couple of weeks ago um, and, after I made a complete blithering idiot of myself and picked on him rather uh, jaded with my sense of humor about situation that happened to him, and it felt like a complete idiot afterwards. And it actually ended up opening up a door for us to have a conversation. I said, "Hey, I'd like to have you come on," and so he has been campaigning ferociously over the last several weeks, and we have touched base here and there in that time. And Mary has been running interference for him, and she finally reached out yesterday, and we were able to put time together. And I don't know. I think Dennis is probably creeping up on bedtime from the sounds of it. He's probably been just exhausted after the week he's had. What did your you'll have to what's your significant other, right? We don't want to offend anybody. Your significant
Right.
other, what's her name?
Caroline,
Caroline. There we go. Caroline said you've been in how many counties, Dennis?
41 in the last 4 months.
So just so people who might be watching this from other places like Louisiana, I have a friend slash fan in Louisiana. They have parishes. How many counties? How many counties are there here?
87
80. They've been in almost half of the counties of Minnesota in how many months?
in 4 months.
In 4 months. Have you actually had a chance to enjoy those counties, or are you
Um,
are you counting the ones that you're just driving through?
no, the car needs to stop and have a meeting of significance. Dairy Queen doesn't count. Um,
He says as he stops at Dairy Queen. Oh,
yeah.
so hey, Dennis, tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, I was reading your, I've heard your bio, I've heard your stump speech, and you already know how I feel about stump speeches. So, but tell tell us a little bit about yourself, because you're not the quintessential attorney. You did not go to college initially to do this. This was something that came on, and now here you are running for attorney general. How did you get there?
Yeah, so I got here because we're at a time where I feel we need a different approach to our government because we've lost trust in our society as a whole, our government, the media,
Yeah.
the judicial system, and it stems back to where when I grew up. I was ostensibly raised by my father, and he was a milkman, like the traditional bringing milk to your door, putting it inside the cute little milk box, putting it inside the refrigerator. He had keys to most of his customers' homes, and I was on his milk route a lot with him. And I saw, and my father, one of the best people you'd ever meet in your life, and he was a relationship person. He was not a person of academics. He wanted to drop out of high school in ninth grade after basketball. He was a pretty good basketball player, for high school standards. And he went to the coach and said, "Coach, I'm going to leave high school. It's after basketball, day after basketball ended, ninth grade." And the coach said, "What are you doing?" Jerry is his first name. "Jerry, what are you doing?" And he said, "Well, I'm going to go work. I'm finished with high school. It's really not for me. I'm really not the book, studying type." And the coach said, "Please stay one more year. We need you on the team next year. And then after that, you can quit if you want." And my father agreed. And the coach thought, and my father said, "One more year and I'm out." Well, the coach thought that he had like tricked him into staying in the high school for the duration. So the day after basketball, 10th grade season, my father went in to say goodbye to the coach. And the coach said, "Well, what are you doing?" And he said, "Well, I told you I'd stick around one more year, and now I'm leaving." And so my father left high school early. He was not an educated person, so running a business in Minnesota and being a sole proprietor, I saw firsthand the struggles he had and how difficult the state government made a small business owner. I mean, certainly taxes are onerous, but the regulation and the all the different complexities of that. And it was from that early age where I wanted to be in a position to, to help business owners, not make things so difficult, and also help families, deal with the difficult government in different ways. So I wanted to go to law school, at an early age. It took me a while to save money and to get to that point. After I graduated from North Dakota State University, I worked for a while, saved some money. Then I went to law school at night at William Mitchell, and then I opened up my own law practice after that. And 21 years later, here we are. A few
Yeah.
things happened.
So you went from you went from from hard Scrabble life, really. I mean, you told a story about literally to spend time with your dad, riding in the truck with him, and
Yeah, I mean, he worked a lot. I mean, anyone who owns their own business knows how much time you put into it. And so I would go with him a lot because I love my dad. He's in heaven now, but I use the present tense. I love him, and I I wanted to spend as much time as possible with him. And sometimes you don't have a choice when you're a little boy and your parents says, "Come with me," and sometimes I really wanted to. He'd give me chocolate milk and make it fun. I mean, but I really grew up
we
admiring.
are easily bribed.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Not today, folks. That's not Dennis today. It's just as kids. Yeah.
Right.
So so
I still
you
do drink chocolate milk though,
you
uh,
still drink chocolate milk
every day.
every
I
I
have
don't I do not. That would be bad for me.
I do I have every day of my life, and it's something I
So
grew up doing, and I just it's
so Dennis, you watch this struggle, you watch this business owner fight. Really, and that's what it is. It's literally people with an entrepreneurial spirit in this state, especially. It's an uphill fight. And that motivated you long before any of this other stuff that's been going on for the last year and a half or so. That really motivated you to step in and take a look and say, "What can I do to help?" And the reason that I bring that up is because most people, how old are you?
54.
You're 54. You and I cut our teeth on law, LA law. That was our idea of lawyers, and driving around with remember he had his car phone, that's everybody was wealthy and they picture, yes,
He was like
exactly, the
this
the
big.
big
He needed
brick.
2 hands with it.
Yeah, exactly. And everybody pictures lawyers having come from the lap of luxury, really. They think that these everybody who's gone to law school, everybody who has made it as a lawyer has come from a place of privilege and pampering, and that's not your life. You didn't grow up with that. You fought for your law practice because of what you experienced as your dad was trying to keep his business going. And did that influence the kind of law that you decided to practice?
It did. Yes, indeed. And because I practice in business transactional law, helping businesses get set up, helping keep their company functioning with the type of requirements they need, and helping with their meetings and contracts. But then also estate law, helping families and small business owners plan for the future, and use the laws to make sure what they want to have happen actually does happen. And when I was in the legislature, I was privileged to serve 2 terms in the Minnesota House of Representatives. I focused on legislation, and that really helped business owners and helped decrease the complexities that we're talking about, because it shouldn't be that hard in today's time to start a business, operate a business, and allow it to make money so you can literally provide for your family. It shouldn't be that hard. And that is also part of what's drawn me to be the attorney general as well.
So I'm just going to throw it out there. All right, Mr. Smith, a counselor, if you will. Okay, great. You practice business law and you worked on estate, planning and whatnot with your law firm. how in the world does that translate to you being qualified to be, what some people, I think to some degree erroneously, because I don't think they understand it, but refer to the highest law enforcement officer in the state of Minnesota as the attorney general. How does a business lawyer slash estate lawyer find himself to be qualified to be the attorney general? But I mean, what do you bring to the table that someone else wouldn't?
Yeah. Being the attorney general and running that office, it is it's about relationships, and it's a people business. It's about being able to connect with the attorneys and the staff in the office, and being able to connect with your clients, ostensibly the state of Minnesota, and all the different departments of our state government, and being able to establish a relationship and work in that relationship, which, as we know, sometimes relationships are difficult. Sometimes you're working with someone that maybe you see things differently. To put this in a different term, a Democrat and a Republican working together, sometimes that's going to be difficult, and
That happens.
that does happen. Yes, I mean, God bless our 87 county attorneys. The attorney general needs to work with each of their offices, and they all don't think alike. No matter which political party you're coming from, there's a mixture out there, and we need someone who can work with all of them. And our current attorney general isn't doing that. And
That's right.
I think I'm uniquely qualified to be able to work with all the different types of political parties, and all the different ideas they have about government and the offices, because I demonstrated that. I have shown leadership skills to be able to do that in some of the most intense situations that we currently have in our society.
So let's. So here's a difficult one. So hindsight being what it is, and having the privilege and the comfort of sitting outside of the realm of decision making when it comes to being attorney general, I'm not a fan of Ellison. That everybody knows that. I've taken up for some of his victims, and I do see them that way. Larvita and Lisa Hansen and Lisa Monet Zarza and others. Dennis Smith is sitting in that position, and he's taking his business attorney practice, his business law firm practice, and whatnot, and he's taking that experience into it. How do you, Dennis, in that position during this time, how would you have managed that incredibly tenuous, almost, not almost, incredibly dangerous, precarious position to look at business owners during that time when you have a governor issuing executive orders? How do you handle that as the attorney general? Who do you have the harder words for?
Well, initially, I have them for the governor, because the attorney general is a part of the executive committee that was invoked and used during COVID time. So you have an incredible influence within that committee, but also you have incredible influence as the attorney general in having the ear of the governor. And I would have pursued a more balanced approach, a more fair approach to all of Minnesota during that time period. Once we went past that and it went into the implementation, I would have implemented the laws equally, something that wasn't done. And I would have done that, and that's something the attorney general has complete control over.
Do you think it's the role of the attorney general to approach, and you brought it up as a member of the executive committee, do you think it's the role of the attorney general to step in, even if he happens to be of the same political persuasion as the governor, and say, hey, governor, I feel like we're really overstepping here, and I think we're opening ourselves up to a lot of trouble. I don't think I can enforce this.
Yeah, TC, even more so when it's your own party. We need to have an unbiased approach to the Attorney General's office. Lady Justice is blind. And an argument could be made that the Office of Attorney General should be sought after by non-political entities, because we can't look through the judicial system through a political lens. That's not how
Right.
our system is set up. And that's what Attorney General Ellison has been doing. And that is wrong. That won't happen when I'm Attorney General.
So
If
you would, and I wouldn't dispute you, but you would argue that Ellison has actually, instead of not even putting no effort into separating his politics from his position, has actually implemented his politics into inculcated the state with his politics because of his position.
yes,
Do you think that opens the state up to danger in the future?
I think so. Danger, past, present, and future. In the past, we've seen it during the riots, where we saw people when there was rioting in our streets, and the city was being burned down. It was well documented that people were traveling here from all over the country because they knew they weren't going to be prosecuted. There wasn't any fear of the consequence of people's actions. That's the beginning of the end when people think that way. And that's Attorney General Ellison's, that lays at his feet. So then the present, yes, certainly people don't think that there's recourse for what they're going to be doing. There's no consequence for their current actions. And also in the future, that's a very dangerous precedent, and one that I think Minnesota is collectively saying enough.
I think it's interesting that you say that Minnesotans are saying enough, because I'm looking at situations like word has come to me that the superintendent of, well, I want to say it's either Byron or Casson Manorville. I'm not 100% sure, but one of those two school districts is actually calling for help because he's got parents petitioning him to to mandate the wearing of facial coverings for the students and guests and visitors and staff and the jab and all of that. And so to hear you say that people are saying enough, is it, how do I want to phrase this? Because I think this is a terribly it's insight, not on my part. Like, no one's ever accused me of being insightful. But I think it can give us some insight into the direction our country, our state in particular, is heading. When there are people that are boldly and vocally out there demanding, and we've seen this with the governor as well, you need to put more mandates in place. And do you think they've been emboldened by the fact that they know the attorney general won't stand up to those and actually will enforce those? And you brought up the riots, won't prosecute people arrested. No matter, like, he could step in where county attorneys are failing and say, no, the state's going to take this, and he doesn't, but yet turns around and brings the full weight of the law down on a Lisa Hanson or a Larvita or whatnot. So do you really think people are saying enough, or is it just the people out here in Rocks and Cows that have said enough is enough?
No, I think people are saying enough, and it means different things to different people. And that's where we need an attorney general, the kind that I will be, where you can listen and bring everyone together and understand where they're coming from, and not be this heavy-handed top-down approach, but to work with people to resolve the differences so we can function together as a society.
What I have observed over the last year and a half especially has been a lot of what you brought down with or brought up with this top down mentality. It, how much involvement should an attorney general have in local decision making when it comes to prosecution and in pursuit of different situations? So Joe Schmo in Fillmore County decides to keep his business open against a mandate, and a big chain business and that happens to have several locations in Fillmore County says, no, we're a vital, essential business, and the county or the local attorney or whoever decides to prosecute, whether it's a city attorney or whatever, decides to prosecute that smaller independent business while like not paying any attention to any of these other businesses. Is that an example of a failure on the part of an attorney general to do the right thing and set out guidance, or is that something that every local jurisdiction should be addressing on their own?
Every jurisdiction should be addressing that on their own. I'm a small government person, and especially in our judicial system, justice is best served when it's as closest to the people as possible. We have 87 duly elected county attorneys. They need to be left alone to do their job. If they need help in the current rules, they can say, hey, need some assistance over here. And then they ask for that assistance, then they receive it. But our system is set up and it needs to be adhered to where they have the discretion to prosecute those cases. And we've seen where there's been influence, undue influence by the state government in some of the examples that you've given during this COVID time, during the implementation or the pursuit of people who were violating the COVID rules, businesses that were violating. And that's wrong. That's not the kind of attorney general I will be. It'll be fair application of the law, equal application of the law, and the county attorneys will be left alone to do their job unless they need help.
It wouldn't be a situation where you'd step in and go, no, you need to go prosecute this person.
No, that isn't how it's supposed to work. And that is not how my office will operate.
Well, it's funny that you say it that way because I have had a conversation with somebody here in the southern reaches of well, it's mostly just rocks down here. There's a lot of cows, but far more rocks. And I had a conversation with somebody who's in a senior law enforcement leadership role, and his office actually got a call from the Attorney General's office pushing him to take part in investigating businesses. And he told this representative for the Attorney General's office, go pound sand. And they were very upset with that. They did not like that. Do you think that's part and parcel of the politics of the individual in that office? Or is that indicative of an office that has just really kind of lost touch with reality, and not just under Ellison's influence, but over the years? And let's be honest, not everybody in that office is brand new with Ellison. There are people that have been there for years.
Yeah, I think it's both. I don't think those answers are mutually exclusive. I think that the office has been ran by one party, by Democrats, for 56 years. The last Republican Attorney General was 1966, coincidentally the year I was born. And that long of one office and one party control is not a good thing. I would argue one party control on any office for that period of time is not healthy for a democracy. And it has not been healthy for that office. And we've seen the national reputation of our Attorney General's office decline. And I think that's a big part of it. But then also, it is the politics of the office to pursue those things like you mentioned. And I've heard similar stories. And that is very wrong. There should not be that type of trying to pursue, trying to direct where the investigations are going to go. And I applaud the county attorneys that stand up and say, no, we're not going to do your bidding. That is wrong.
Is it? Well, would it be fair to say that in some of the instances that we're looking at, as you're sitting on the outside looking in, and I know we can't judge heart motivations, but I think we can all take a look and see there's more going on than just, oh, I want to do a good job as Attorney General. Do you think that you're in the event that you get the nomination? Yeah, because I'm trying to remain. I told you I've already had Lynn on, so um, in the event that you get the nomination, you're going to have to go after your opponent. Gloves are going to have to come off. You're just going to have to, because he's going to play dirty. He will absolutely play dirty. It doesn't matter who we put up there to run against him. Do you think it's fair to say that he's using what he's doing now as a means to gain national recognition and a run for something outside of the state?
Hard for me to say if that's part of Attorney General Ellison's motivation. But to answer the first part of the question, I'm a fighter. I'm not afraid to get into a fight. I've been tested in this area. I sometimes I jokingly say that that I'm a hockey player, and I know how to fight in a corner. And I'm a former BMX bicycle motocross national champion. I'm a two-time national champion. I was world ranked. I know how to be competitive, and I have that that heart of a champion. And I know what it's like to be backed into a corner. I know what it's like to have a gun put to your head, on the streets in St. Paul. I know what it's like to receive a death threat over legislation that you're drafting when I was a member of the Minnesota House of Representatives. And I know how to stand up and fight for the citizens of Minnesota and for what I believe in. And after I received the nomination of the Republican Party, you will see one hell of a fight brought against this Attorney General of all the wrong that he is doing and what he represents.
So I'm gonna bring up something that you had brought up in Rochester at the Legion, and because I think it's a compelling angle to what we have seen played out time and time and time again, is the idea of outside influence on the political structure. And you had mentioned that there is a pretty big name donor that has some outside influence in state politics, and that for a fact, if I remember correctly, and I don't want to misstate that. So, but you're aware of the reality that this outside donor is bringing in a large amount of influence in certain positions here in the state. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, it is. It's well documented that George Soros is funding and giving enormous amounts of money to attorney general candidates throughout the country.
And Ellison would be one of those.
Yeah, yes, exactly. And influencing those offices in ways that they shouldn't be influenced. And I think it is shameful that there's this type of outside influence impacting our great state of Minnesota. That won't happen when I'm Attorney General.
So let me ask this. Maybe these two things will be the closest to a gotcha that we'll get. And like I told you, I'm not a softball kind of guy, but I'm also not a throw random weird accusations about lizard people and flat Earth, hollow Earth theories or anything at you. But so how do you approach this and say, look, I'm not going to allow these outside influences in, when, like, let's be honest, you're campaigning, that takes money, and there are going to be people who are going to look at you and go, hey, we'd like to see you take on Ellison and beat him, and to do that, we're going to give you I don't know what the max campaign contribution is anymore. I stopped paying attention to that, but We're going to give you the max, but we'd like your ear at times. How do you fight that? And how do you point that out in a campaign when you're running against Ellison that he's allowed that to happen? How do you make that tangible to the people?
I served 2 terms in the Minnesota House of Representatives, and I was known as a listener. I listened to people, no matter if you gave a contribution to the campaign during election season or not. If you were a constituent, or if you were a citizen lobbyist or a professional lobbyist, I listened, because it's my belief that we need to always be listening, and we need to evolve as human beings, because there's always something we can learn. So I have demonstrated in the past where I can accept a contribution from a particular organization and then vote against them on a key issue of theirs the next session. I mean, there's documented proof of this. One example I can share is the crumb rubber issue. Do you know those little black pellets in soccer fields and football fields? Like if you're watching a football game and the ball hits the ground and little black pellets jump up off the ground. Have you ever seen that?
You lost me at football. So
okay. How about soccer?
And about 75% of my audience is going, "What's football?" No, go ahead.
Okay.
So
go
ahead.
For the Ted Lasso fans, for European football, soccer as we know it, or American football, our fields are made. Some fields are made with these little black pellets that are meant to absorb the cushion when you fall on it. And it came to my attention when I was in the legislature that they're called crumb rubber. These little pieces of crumb rubber, there's a link to causing cancer in children. And I saw enough data to support the idea, for me to support the idea of continuing this study. And someone brought this issue to me because I was listening. I did my own research. I determined it was an idea worth fighting. Well, this is an example about not only going against lobbyists that are your friends or that have supported your campaign, but also many people inside your own party. This idea was not popular necessarily within the Republican Party, and it wasn't certainly popular with the industries that made those crumb rubber pieces. Industries that traditionally have supported Republicans. And I was urged very strongly to let this issue go. But I didn't. I stood up and I fought, because fighting for the citizens of Minnesota is my number one thing that I will do.
And it shouldn't know a political party.
Exactly.
Right.
So I don't have any qualms about accepting someone's campaign contribution one day and then the next day voting no on their issue. Now, our laws don't allow that really to happen. So that's a nice thing to say, but it logistically can't happen because you can't solicit campaign funds from industries during the election or during the legislative season, legislative time. But in theory, that is how I operate. And when I become Attorney General, I will stand on my own 2 feet, and I will tell if something is happening or somebody asks me to do something that is not in the best interest of Minnesota, regardless of who helped me become Attorney General, who has supported me. The citizens of Minnesota comes first, always.
Are attorney generals authorities, or are they elected servants?
Well, you can make an argument for both. You need to be a servant, whereas you're the attorney for the people of Minnesota, but you're an elected official, which allows you to do certain things, such as sue the ag commissioner when they're not implementing their laws correctly, or sue the Department of Education when they're implementing CRT and they shouldn't be, or sue the Secretary of State when they circumvent our voting laws to change our voting rules halfway through the game.
You know what? Thank you for bringing up that critical, and I differentiate. I think a lot of people, the more you get to know me, I think a lot of people use CRT way too broadly, and I point out to people all the time, it's not just CRT; it's critical theory in general. It started out as, well, you went to law school, so you probably had some of this. It started out as a really interesting legal theory, interesting in as much as if you study it, you can understand where they're coming from without necessarily agreeing with them. But it's branched off into so many aspects now. So where we're seeing things like comprehensive sex education is actually just another aspect of critical theory as a whole. Critical sexual theory, critical gender theory, critical feminist theory, and whatnot. And you said something that I think a lot of people are going to find incredibly compelling. If you have to, you go after the Department of Education and say, stop. Because frankly, I'm working with several citizen action groups right now who their ears are going to twitch when you say that, because they're fighting in their school districts to keep this out, and they're being shut down. We're seeing school board meetings where people are being silenced. We're seeing school board meetings where they're being told you can't talk about that. You can't bring up that you've had a conversation with someone. You can't point out where a school, in one case, a superintendent of schools went on as a representative of the school district, went on a forum much like mine and literally labeled everybody in his community a racist, and said that he's teaching all of this staff these theories, but now they're denying it. Do you think that, and it's odd to hear people talk about a state entity sue another state entity, but is that the kind of investment of money that, and I'm asking this honestly, because I look at it and go, that's where this attorney general should be stepping in and investing money, is preventing this kind of abuse.
Right.
Is that really the role of the attorney general?
It absolutely is, to stand up for the citizens of Minnesota when a wrong is being perpetrated against them. That is the role. That is how my office will be ran. I will protect the citizens of Minnesota. In regard to the CRT issue, I've been studying this. And when you framed the question, you framed it correctly, that it is an advanced degree theory that should be taught in college and graduate degrees and doctorate programs. Should not be taught K through 12. Absolutely unacceptable.
Are you seeing it bleed down into those levels like everybody else is seeing it?
Yes, I am. Yes. And that's why I got, that's why I'm so passionate about it, because it cannot be part of our core curriculum. So the Attorney General from Montana, I met with this individual, spoke with him about his lawsuit, and he figured out a way to sue his Department of Education, brought them to court. And that's the kind of creative solution problems you'll see from this Attorney General, when I'm Attorney General, about how to protect Minnesotans when these agencies are doing the things that they shouldn't be doing.
Okay, so you in Rochester, okay, besides our initial interaction where I made a complete, like I've already said, a blithering fool of myself. Self-deprecating humor is the only humor I have, Dennis. So you had said something there, and you remember I kind of got a little fed up because people kept asking you Secretary of State questions. And I said, like, you guys are asking the wrong person. He's not running for Secretary of State. These are Secretary of State questions. You have to direct those questions at those people. So let's bring in election stuff right now, right? Because that's another hot button issue for people about election integrity. What is the role of the Attorney General when it comes to election integrity? What can the Attorney General do to protect the sanctity of voting in a state like Minnesota, which, I'm sorry, the corruption is rampant. If you can't see that, Project was it Alpha News or Project? I think it was Project Veritas, has video of a representative of Ilhan Omar's office bragging about having stacks of cash and ballots in his vehicle, and nobody did anything. Where's the Attorney General? Where's the Secretary of State? And how does the Attorney General address that?
Yeah, the Attorney General should have had a full investigation to see if any laws were broken, and then pursue those broken laws to the fullest extent of the law. If you break our election laws, you're going to go to jail. It's as simple as that. That clearly didn't happen this last election in regard to the conduct of the Attorney General, nor did the Attorney General stop or try to stop the Secretary of State by changing the election rules. So a commissioner or a department is supposed to operate a certain way. When they're not operating that way, they should be stopped, and that's the Attorney General's role in doing so. Just like the the egg commissioner is not following an arbitration rule that's currently in law, and farmers are losing land because of it. I met with some farmers up north where this was happening, and it's unacceptable that our Attorney General is letting other state agencies not do their job when the Attorney General has the power to step in and bring suit against them for that non-compliance.
So shed a little light on that. You've mentioned this now with the egg department now twice.
Yeah.
Without boring all of the urban people, what and by urban I mean anybody in Rochester, St. Paul, or Minneapolis. So everybody else, even Duluth, is country. So what's going on in that situation that's so egregious?
So farming issues are very important to me. It's really the backbone of our great state. And even though I was a legislator and elected from Maple Grove and Osseo, a suburb, the farm group endorsed me all 3 times I ran, because I supported legislation when I was a legislator, and I care about the farm issues. And there's a situation going on where if you're losing your farmland, there's an arbitration process that's currently in law that you're supposed to go through that process before your land is taken from you. And there are some farmers where they're in this process, and the ag department is not using this arbitration process that is clearly spelled out in law.
Are we talking about eminent domain type situations or foreclosures or
Foreclosure.
Wow, really?
Yeah. And it's one single person, fighting the machine of the big government, and it's wrong. And that's where the Attorney General is supposed to step in and say, I'm going to help you fix this. This doesn't happen to our citizens. That department is not following their laws.
So this is blatant. Like the egg department is flat out just ignoring this established law in Minnesota and just blowing right by it.
Right. I mean, it could be where they don't know the law, which is unacceptable, by the way.
Unacceptable.
It could be where they haven't read the countless letters, phone calls, and meetings that these people have been involved in. I don't know all the facts. I don't know what both sides have done. I know one side of it. It seems egregious, and that won't happen when I'm Attorney General. That's a good example of what I'm talking about.
Well, I heard that same story to some degree with a local business down here. I live way out in the southeast corner of the state. I'm so far south. I'm darn near Iowa, and don't hold it against me.
I love Iowa.
I grew up there, so born in Minnesota, raised in Iowa. No one likes me.
Well, I like you, TC. So you have one.
Oh well, there went your campaign. Sorry. We're out here in this corner of the state, and a local business posted, "Constitutionally compliant business. We will not require you to wear a face covering." And a local looky-loo literally called the sheriff's office and said, "You've got this person who's violating the governor's law." I know. And this individual went to a state representative and said, what do I do?" And the state representative said, "You can't fight the government. You just do what they want you to do." And that's what I'm hearing you say with this situation with the egg department is you've got, I don't care if it's a farmer who has thousands and thousands of acres and has the money to run it, or if it's the local guy, like my son-in-law who rents some land here and there and as a side hustle raises some livestock and raises some crops. I don't care who you are. I don't care how much money you have. You can't afford to fight. You can't afford to fight the government. That because the government has a never-ending stream of cash because they take it from us.
Right.
And and I think that's what's missing. And to hear you and a couple of, and another talk about how they're going to fight for people is what's been very encouraging to me. Another issue that has come up, and you've been at some events with Mike Murphy. I know that you guys know each other.
Mhm.
A big thing for Mike is, and I'm still waiting to get him on. Everybody's campaigning. Nobody's got time for TC. I had to pin you down on a Sunday night. You should be sleeping. But one of the things that Mike's been big on is the idea that the Second Amendment and how important that is as a constitutional issue. And as talking about when I'm governor, I'm going to and another person, I won't say opponent, a person who's running for the same nomination that you're running for has billed herself, and I think justly, as a very strong Second Amendment candidate. As a candidate for Attorney General, what are you going to do in the state of Minnesota to ensure not just protection for current gun owners, but to establish a more constitutional means and mode of firearms ownership and even carrying in the state of Minnesota? Because that's they're coming for us. They're coming very hard for us.
Right. Well, I mean, step one is defending our current laws and making sure that every state agency, every person, every entity in the state is following current law in regard to in regard to the entire Second Amendment. The attorney general does not get to create laws. They can advocate, but that is not the primary purpose from the office. But having the ability to hold the laws and to hold the agencies accountable for implementing them is a very powerful thing. And sometimes when people are talking about the Attorney General's office, people say things that the Attorney General's office can do that it really can't. I mean, so there is no, voting or trying to change the law from the Attorney General's office. That is simply a different office. Sometimes people get mixed up on that.
Right.
But from this Attorney General, you will see a full, defending of our current laws.
Let's say you're Attorney General and the feds step in and they say, "Hey, we're changing gun registration, and we're now requiring every gun owner in the country to register with their local sheriff's office or their local police department, whatever the case might be. We're going to require mandatory registration of every firearm." Is that a place for the Attorney General to step in and say, "No, we're going to fight you on this"?
Yes. Yeah, the Attorney General has the ability to sue the federal government when the individual rights, the state rights are eviscerated by the federal government. And yes, that would be a case where the defense of the Second Amendment you would see from this Attorney General.
How serious is the oath of office to you?
Oh, extremely.
Is it? I know I'm getting a little more serious now, but because we're opening up for you to bring in your two most lovely public campaign people here. Just like if they're still around, did they go off screen and leave totally, or are they still here?
She did step downstairs for a moment,
Oh
but
no, we didn't lose her, did we?
we did not. She will be back.
All right. So right now, what we're seeing is a lot of people take the oath from the governors to attorney generals. I mean, almost anybody in the public sector takes the oath
Hmm.
to some degree, even teachers to some degree or another. There, when you're in that public sector, you are working as an employee of the people, and there's some adherence, at least to some degree, of constitutionality. And what we're seeing is a lot of people take that oath, they raise their hand, they put their hand on the, the Bible or the Quran, like some people have lately. And they swear to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States, but then every action that they take is literally in direct contrast to that. What's the answer, Dennis, to dealing with people like that? Because they seem to think they're untouchable. They can violate that oath. They can mark themselves out tacitly as enemies of the very Constitution that has allowed them to take that office, and there doesn't seem to be any recourse for we the people in those situations.
Yeah, there's recourse in 2022. Sign up at the DennisSmith.org campaign website, and let's go bring that recourse. That is the best recourse we have. Is simply vote them out of office.
And does that have to be just at the governor's level, or can we start taking that kind of action at the local level, replacing school boards, replacing city councils, replacing mayors and county commissions? Where does that? You're traveling 41 out of 80 some counties in Minnesota. I'm like, you knew how many counties there were, and I don't even know that. So, because I'm self-centered. Is there a place for that at the local political level to really make that change? Because everybody talks about, oh, we got to replace the governor, we got to replace Ellison, we have to replace
Yeah.
the president in the next election. How important is the local election?
Yeah, the local elections are extremely important, and it's important that communities that they are represented by people that they respect, and that those people respect the people's wishes. And if any community, regardless if it's at a city and a county or state representative, state senate, statewide, congressional level, if they're finding those representatives aren't representing their wishes, honoring how they want to be governed, then they need to come together and find someone else who will do that in a more appropriate way. And we're seeing something that's going on out there where, in regard to COVID, when our governor and our attorney general decided which businesses are going to stay open in a completely unfair way, which ones are going to be closed. The hardware store on Main Street had to close, but the big box retailer down the road could stay open and sell the exact same product. It's insanity. And the implementation of masks in a non-legal way, the implementation of vaccine requirements in a non-legal way based on company size. Oh, and by the way, Congress making these rules exempted themselves.
Yeah.
So you think about
the post office too, by the way.
Yeah, and the post office. So you all need to live by these set of rules, and then we're going to live by these set of rules. It doesn't work that way. So stand up and fight. Join my campaign, because we're going to go change this system.
Did she make it back up yet, or I keep acting like I can look around your camera and see you.
She did not yet. So she's oh,
There she is.
Caroline. Yeah, TC wants you to come on camera. Yeah, okay, she's making her way over.
She's the face that got this interview going tonight.
Exactly, right.
And it showed up and it said Dennis Smith, and I'm like, you are not Dennis. So how and Caroline, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I know we've met before, but I haven't met nearly as many people as you. I don't know how you guys keep any name straight, to be honest with you. How are you doing with all of this? Because you're traveling with him.
I am as much as I can. I think it's important to have support from the people in your lives when you're embarking on this, because it's really easy to talk about what's wrong with the system, and it's really hard to actually step forward and do something about it. And it's a big sacrifice. So I'm really proud that Dennis wants to do this, and so I'm all over it. I love our country. I'm a first-generation American, and have not been.
Wow, that's interview material by itself, right there.
My parents are both from Germany, so they came to New York in the '60s. I'm originally born and raised in New York, and so I love our country. And I haven't been particularly involved in politics, but then this guy is. So it seems like the right thing to do, and I'm supporting him. So
has this been eye-opening for you to see how people are responding to him?
Yeah, it's been really interesting. People are people are upset, and they're disappointed, and people feel like they're being left out of the process, that it doesn't feel fair to a lot of people, and it's really disappointing. And I just know, even with my own experiences with friends and family, the last few years have been particularly brutal in politics, and it's really infiltrated people's lives. And I think certainly there's a large role that the media has played in all of this, and creating these seeds of distrust. And I think it's really unfortunate, because it's spilling over into personal lives. And I'd like to be part of changing that. And that's what Dennis is about.
Well, yeah, if they can't beat you philosophically, they'll beat you personally. They'll find some reason. So here's Carolyn, here's the really serious question. Are you ready? Does your dog like Dennis?
Oh, Bandit loves Dennis. Where did Bandit go? Yeah, he loves Dennis. He doesn't like a lot of people. But Dennis is a dog. Dennis
so that opens me up to ask you guys about this theory, or this pet thing.
The pet trust. That was part of what Dennis worked on. Dennis worked on a lot of really interesting legislation, and
really interesting legislation. I like how you said that.
People think of politics as very. I mean, it's not always. It's not. They're things that really affect people's lives.
So yeah, so the genesis is the genesis of the pet trust bill came to me where Minnesota is the only state. We were the only state in the country that didn't allow you to leave money to a pet and have a fiduciary responsibility for those funds to the pet. So I drafted a bill, and I worked it.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So if my dog outlives me,
right, you can give your dog money, and you've always been able to give your dog money, but now you can give your dog money in a trust, and you can appoint your friend, your brother, your sister, whomever you want, and they have to manage that money and care for your pet in a fiduciary, in a very strictly legally binding fiduciary manner. And then so then you have the ease of heart and the peace of mind, knowing your loved animal will have the means to be cared for after you pass on. And
okay, so he has a very beautiful face of his campaign He's got a dog that loves him, and he wants you to be able to. I mean, what else? What else can you say?
Well, and TC, so a fun story about this. So when this bill was in the Civil Law Committee, I brought in my golden retriever Reagan to testify. Now,
Seriously, Reagan?
Yes.
Yes. And she's the first golden retriever, the first dog in the history of Minnesota to give testimony in a committee meeting at the in the Minnesota legislature. And she was right there at the testifier table with me. I've got a lot of photos. There was an enormous amount of media that day.
I need that photo for the thumbnail for this video.
Yes, yeah, I will get it for you. It was a great day, and she let out one bark during the committee hearing. That she loved the attention, and so we had a lot of fun with it that day with having her there in committee. But later on, a couple weeks later, when the House was on the floor, I work so well with my colleagues, and I take an inclusive approach to to my life and to my legislation, that it received unanimous support in the Minnesota House of Representatives of this bill, because it was a really important bill, received unanimous support, and I'm very happy about it, and for all the people that that really care for their pets in a loving way.
And it's funny because there's going to be somebody out there that's going to say, "What a waste," and I'm over here going, "That's amazing. I love that." Like, to heck with whether or not I can visit you in the hospital. Who's going to take care of my dog? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, Carolyn, here it is. It's all on you. Are you ready? It's all on you. He's done all the talking, which I'm sure you're used to seeing by now. If you had to pick one character trait of Dennis to be the compelling reason for Minnesotans, especially, and let's just be honest, as we come up to the nomination process, what one compelling reason should those who are going to be voting in this situation, should they, and you can't say, so he's not at home as often. That's not the right answer.
He's not. Yeah, right.
What's the one compelling character trait that's going to make him the better candidate?
I think I haven't met a lot of people that have the kind of sense of humanity and compassion that Dennis has. It just reminds me a lot of my father. He has got a sense of responsibility for others, and a kindness, and a sense of just an ability to forgive people. So he's just a fantastic human being. So.
Aw. That was even better than I was. That was better than I was hoping for. And I was slightly wrong. Dennis, I have one question for you. Yes. And this is a serious question, and the last one was serious too. But this is a very serious question. If we can arrange it, would you be willing to do a however many candidate debate there is with the three of you as of right now? Would you be willing to do a debate for the nomination for Attorney General at the Republican level between you, Lynn, and Doug?
I would, absolutely. We are traveling the state, as we mentioned, 41 counties in just 4 months. We're going to every place in the state to talk to literally trying to talk to every voter, to look them in the eye, to ask them what's important to them, to hear their concerns. And a part of that is an exchange of ideas. And I believe that our ideas, we have the winning campaign. We're representing all of Minnesota. Happy to talk about that anytime, anywhere, any place.
Hey, you guys, you saw, well, first of all, you see the real face of the campaign is Carolyn. So, and I say that because I know what it's like to be not the one that everybody in the room wants to talk to. So we have a decision to make, Minnesota. As of right now, just for the Republican nomination for Attorney General, it's as far as I know, it's still just a three-way race. And And we have to do the right thing in this situation, because not only is it important that we have the right person running, but we really, for the best interest of the state of Minnesota, we have to put the right candidate up there to beat Ellison for the health and welfare and the security of this state. And so you guys have to get out there. You have to go to campaign events. You have to talk to these candidates and find out where they're at, find out what they stand for, find out what they believe. And you have to vote on your convictions. You have to vote on your principles, your worldview, and your philosophy. And that's why I asked a question about a debate, because I really think we need to get these folks on a stage and get them in a civil way to hash it out and say, here's what I believe, here's what makes me powerful. And then we need, no matter what, in the end, we need to stand behind whoever the nominee is, no matter who it is. There again, as long as they're genuinely a constitutionally minded person, stand behind them, because we have got to rid this state of the danger that we're facing right now. So thank you very much, and I'll let you know when it comes out.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me on. Please go to DennisSmith.org to learn more about the campaign. Good to see you, TC.